is one of the true legends of the USPA. He's a battle-scarred veteran of developing new technology in many, many areas. Bob Beck is an award-winning physicist and widely known for his instrumentation of altered states. His development of state-of-the-art medical electrostimulators and his investigation of Tesla electromagnetics are famous. He has been a consultant to industry and government and was a senior lecturer in the graduate school at the University of Southern California. He is the owner of several patents, including the low-voltage electronic flash. After discovering hidden research and several patents, Dr. Beck was convinced that microcurrents of electricity have the power to disable viruses and other pathogens to allow the body to heal. He applied his knowledge of physics to develop a way for you to take back your power and apply microcurrents of electricity in a simple, non-invasive way. Individual researchers have been helped to overcome CS, AIDS, and other illnesses which are considered terminal by mainstream medical technology. Dr. Beck will demonstrate 3 simple research instruments as a health protocol. A research paper with schematics on how to build your own units will be available. His talk is entitled Conquer Illness, Recharge the Body Electric. Bob Beck.
Hi. Okay, this is Saturday, 11:15 a.m. Okay, this is Saturday, 11:15 a.m. We're in room B, not in room A. There was a couple of misprints along the way here. And we're going to tell you about what I think is the most exciting development in medicine in this generation. But it wasn't in this generation. It was discovered 107 years ago and rediscovered in 1990 as an absolute cure for AIDS by Dr. Kaali, K-A-A-L-I, of the Albert Einstein University of Medicine in New York City. Only one mention of this technology will ever be told in the American press. If they keep this a secret from the public, you will continue to be enslaved as you have been since 1910 by John D. Rockefeller Sr. when he bought pharmaceutical houses. He did not want you to know that electricity was far superior to pharmaceuticals. So he hired a chap named Abraham Flexner, F-L-E-X-N-E-R, which with government, congressional, and senatorial support went around and threatened the medical schools in America, forbidding them, this is true, forbidding them for investigating electromedicine, because at that time, 1910, electromedicine was coming into powerful use. People today are getting the Nobel Prize for rediscovering things which were common in 1910. For example, Niels Bohrengem, the Swedish radiologist who puts a couple of needles in the breast cancer, puts 9 volts across the needles, cures the breast cancer, is word for word out of 1900 medical texts that I have in my library. In other words, you have been brainwashed to where you have to buy pharmaceuticals if you have a disease. And a far, far, far better way to get rid of diseases is electronically. And you want to show us what a battery looks like there?
Certainly.
Here's a $1 9-volt 2U6 transistor radio battery, and for $1.32 you can buy the same 9-volt battery on an alkaline that'll last about 4 times longer. And just recently, I've been investigating this now for about 7 years, just recently the European press is bringing out that they have the instrumentation to discover what actually in the immune system kills the bacteria, the germs, the microbes, the viruses, And guess what it is? It's electricity. And we've reprinted a couple of these papers in this summary of my work. And in case anyone is worried about patent infringement, the current device is patented. For the people listening to the tape, it's patent number 5188738 by the medical school and the doctors who invented it. And in order to maintain control of it, they are using electrification of the blood surgically. And what they're doing, here you see a cross-section of a human forearm and bicep with a little device surgically implanted inside of the artery in your arm that has a small battery, a transistor watch battery that lasts a little over a month. When that battery runs down, you go back to the hospital, you have surgical removal of the device, which is sterilized, a new battery is put in it, and it's put in the opposite arm. Then into a leg, then into a femur, then into a hip, until you have lived the entire length of time, until, here's an enlarged viewpoint of it in patent. Again, you might want to look this up, 5188738. This is republished in your paper, which Russ has at his booth. And the blood, about a cubic centimeter and a half, flows through this, becomes electrified. The electrification does not kill anything. It changes the outer protein transcriptase layer so that the germs, bacteria, viruses cannot attach to the living human cells. When they can't attach to them, they can't inject their programming into them, and they can't reproduce. They die. Your liver and kidneys throw these off. We have hundreds of former AIDS patients who are now completely cured. We have proof of this. We have the hospitals that they went to that got their blood tests. I brought a stack of these, but we're kind of out of time today. Here's what a typical PCR, polymerase chain reaction test, looks like. And this one, when he started, had 573,983 particles of HIV per cubic centimeter of blood. He was dying. He was on his deathbed. He was wired up. It took 2 attendants to lift him from the deathbed to a potty. And then after 2.5 months, his HIV count went down to less than 100 copies per cubic centimeter per milliliter of blood. And that is a cure. 100 was the least amount of HIV at this particular time, this particular lab, this was 1995, could run. But we have dozens of these, and Russ has hundreds of them in his files. And nowhere in America have you read one word that an absolute sure cure for HIV, for AIDS, exists. It has, and it was first mentioned in Science News in 1991. And this article in Science News was reprinted for all of you in your manual. This is a book on how to do this, what to do, what to build, how long to use. And this is the March the 20th, 1991, page 207, shocking treatment proposed for AIDS. By putting a couple of platinum wires in a petri dish with highly infected AIDS blood and human cells, the AIDS could no longer attach to the human cells, died, and the person got well. And here it is in American press, and then this was the last word of this Because if you find out about this technology, you're going to get well without doctors, without pharmaceuticals. And nothing but a 9-volt battery and a voltage multiplier. We now take it up to 33 volts. Show them what you do there.
Get a microphone. Okay. Test. Test. There we are. We're all wrapped up here. That's all I can get. Okay. Sure. Oh, down there. What's this one here?
I'll give you the audience mic.
Basically, excuse me, what we have here is I'm going to need 3 hands. We have 2 gold-plated electrodes on the end of this wire set, which plugs into the unit, which outputs the correct 50 to 100 microamperes that is required to do the blood electrification as per the patent, as Bob was mentioning. And these 2 small electrodes, if I can do it here, will fit over the ulnar and the radial artery, not the veins, but the actual artery on your wrist. You can see it there. I'll hold it up. And when the machine is turned on, you'll get a mild tingling sensation as the electricity is introduced into the bloodstream this way. And as the blood is naturally pumped through the body with the heart, it'll pass through this electrical field and mimic what is done in the patent. So Bob brought out a unique way to do the protocol outlined in the patent, but to keep the blood in the body where it belongs.
Okay, there's a far better way to operate on you and put an electrode in your leg or your arm or your artery, and that is to feel your pulse. Do this right now, if you will. You know where you feel your pulse? On the thumb side of the inside of the wrist. You feel your heart beating there? Why is that? Because the arteries that feed your hand go close to the skin to avoid the bones that are in your wrist. When they're close to the skin, you can access these through external electrodes. And isn't this a far better way than going to a hospital and having little electrodes implanted into the arm? I think so, and it's a lot cheaper. This whole thing, might cost $100 if you buy it, and $39.95 if you build your own. And in here, we've given you complete instructions on how to build your own. You don't have to buy anything, but some people are so insecure with electronics, they don't know which end of a soldering iron to handle. So we have printed a very simple device using a relay which reverses the polarity of the voltage which is going into your blood. And then on the next page or two, there's a more profound device that uses no relay but one battery and a voltage tripler. In other words, you have everything you need here to do this yourself. There is nowhere that you can go, no doctor in America where you can go and guarantee to cure AIDS. This, if we were medical professions, is guaranteed to cure AIDS, hepatitis, herpes, Epstein-Barr, many diseases which are considered incurable, because the medical colleges who are investigating this now and not telling you one word about it are checking every known disease. But where this is really valuable, how many of you have followed Larry Harris's work on microbiology, electronic warfare? We have a privileged communication from his camp, Central Intelligence Agency it used to be, that says this is the only thing which will save America in case the biological warfare finally comes to pass. He has tested it with anthrax, Ebola, hantavirus, and hundreds of others that you have not read about that are being used as biological warfare because the Middle European countries are not going to beat us atomically, fission or fusion. They can easily beat us with germs. We lost 20 million Americans at the end of World War I with nothing but influenza. 20 million Americans were infected by the troops returning, and people were dying right and left. That's nothing like the number of people who are going to die. The only cure for this until last year was considered to be antibiotics. There are not 0.1% enough antibiotics in America in hospitals, in drugstores, in clinics to treat even a small percentage of the American citizens in case one of the countries unleashes biological warfare. Now, in case you don't know it, I'm going to have to break some bad news. This is from the second front page on January 22nd, 1979, in which an article says, Clinton warns of germ warfare. This is the only mention that's been made in the local, this is California papers, that the biggest project in America today, bigger than the Manhattan Project during World War II when we were trying to develop the atom bomb, the biggest project is biological warfare. And all of our best people are secretly working on these germs, which are being stored in America and some foreign countries, to be unleashed against any country like Iraq, Iran, that brings us out. And you really should get a copy of this because most of the people won't believe you that the most top secret research is in biological warfare. And what you need is one of these devices in your medicine cabinet at home to put on at midnight when you're feeling a little bad, and it will cure any virus that is turned loose that gets into your blood and infects you. This is confidential, privileged communication. Larry Harris and a number of other people have tested my device. The only thing that cures all infectious diseases with no antibiotics. There are 100,000, roughly, registered antibiotics in America, and some of these they're effective against maybe 8 or 10. Penicillin, when it was first brought out, eliminates 8 germs, no viruses, germs. Now it eliminates about 4 because these others have become strain resistant. There's no known germ which is strain resistant to this particular device. And this paper will tell you how to build one, and if it's impossible for you to build it, they're for sale by some ethical manufacturers. 1 or 2 have dropped out of the loop since a few years ago. But Russ is still here. I don't get a penny of what he does. I recommend him because he's making a good, ethical, reliable, non-breakdown device. Now, there's some other things that we had to handle. I'm sorry I have such a short time. Are secondary infections, opportunistic infections. Nobody has ever died of AIDS. AIDS stands for Acquired Immune Deficiency, AID, Acquired Immune Deficiency Diseases. So once you have AIDS, your immune system can no longer handle a cold, pneumonia, the flu, Kaposi's sarcoma, and hundreds of other, 23 are listed as corollaries of AIDS. all other diseases, very common ones that are not politically incorrect to have, take over when your immune system is bad. The best way to rehabilitate your immune system in a period of a few days, up to 3 weeks, up to about 6 or 8 weeks in the case of hepatitis, which is ruining your liver, is electrical cleansing of the blood. If you get 50 to 100 microamperes flowing through your blood, which is simple to do externally with the unit that Russ just showed you, you will eliminate all of these diseases. This is not my opinion. It is a statement of fact, and we have republished some of the European papers in this paper, which is available. And if you're wondering why it hasn't been done, the business in this country is run by the pharmaceutical houses. They loan the doctors money when they're in medical school, they buy their furniture. The doctors know that their income is going to come from selling pharmaceuticals, and that's too bad. So here on page 12, page 11, we've printed a number of very, very public records. These are U.S. patents that tell that this work was first discovered 107 years ago. And why don't you know about it? Because you've been brainwashed by people like Andrew Flexner, who were hired by John D. Rockefeller when he bought pharmaceutical houses. He realized he would make no money if Americans found out that blood would eliminate the bacteria, germs, pathogens, viruses, parasites faster than antibiotics. So to handle these side diseases, we make colloids. We normally make these. How many of you people have not made your own colloid yet? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Should we do this? We're kind of out of time. We normally make colloids in a glass of water and show you the water before and after in a laser. I'll do it.
I'll just...
Let's shine the laser through that.
Okay, let's get
What
what Bob's going to demonstrate here is making your own ionic colloidal silver very easily. We're going to use a tap water here, and he's going to shine a laser light through it to see if there are any impurities in the water. Right on the side there.
Yeah.
Batteries are
The
on.
battery's still on here. This is water directly out of the tap. And as I shine the laser light through it, you don't see much of a path, which is shown by dirt particles in the water or colloids reflected back. This is called a Tyndall, Tyndall, or Rayleigh effect. Those were the physicists who discovered this. And we're going to put the silver electrodes from Russ's blood purifier in there for about 3 minutes.
And basically what's happening here is that the unit itself, it's a dual function unit, and hopefully we can get enough of the silver in to show you this, and we'll let it sit there for a few minutes. The unit outputs 27 volts D.C., which is applied across the pure silver wires, and it's very important to use pure silver. We use 0.9999 pure silver. Do not use sterling silver, as it is toxic and contains nickel. And while this is going around, I might as well tell the story that we tested with the colloidal silver. I wanted to see if this was truly effective, and I decided I was skeptical initially, and I made myself a batch of colloidal silver, and I took some toilet water. You know, the stuff that you...
Unflushed toilet.
And I sent it to a lab, and I asked the lab technician in Vancouver, Canada, I said, please tell me what's in this. And he said there were 450,000 colony-forming units per milliliter. And I said, well, what does that mean? He said, well, if you drank it, you get very sick, and if you left it alone, it'll turn into a mushroom farm. I said, okay, that's great. So I then took the same sample and I added 8 drops in that 50 ml sample with this ionic colloidal silver, sent it back to the lab, and I said, can you please tell me what's in this water? Oh, that's sterile. It completely sterilized the water, and that with only 8 drops. So to make sure that we did not miss the test, I did it over 30 times at different times of the day, and we got the exact same results, even with colloidal silver, ionic silver that we made 6 months prior. So it seemed to hold its charge. And a few minutes are up here. The wire has blackened slightly because it's given off silver and oxidized, and Bob's now going to shine the laser light through the glass.
Oh, beautiful.
And what do we see here?
Here we see a beam.
Get that light on a bit. I don't think the light's quite on there, Bob. Batteries, there we are.
There we are.
Can you see that beam of light?
You see a red line going directly through the water. And this is about 3 parts to 5 parts per million silver colloid, which kills 650 different diseases that are known. The research was done at UCLA Biomed. Can you all see the beam back there? A red line through the water. Now, we have provided a medicine for the formerly sick patients whose immune systems were so beaten down by the millions of invaders that had come in infecting it that they could not handle it. They can now handle it. We had another problem, a third problem. How do you get rid of the germs and viruses which are thrown aside by the organs that are infected and are living in your lymph system, the body's garbage system, or in your kidneys or your liver, and would normally be eliminated and make you sick? The way we did this was to develop a very, very effective magnetic pulsar. And that's the coil of the pulsar. And I think he's going to demonstrate it now. Tell us about it.
Okay, I'm going to stand up for this one. Now this coil is exposed for a demonstration purpose. Back at the booth, they're fully covered for the electrical safety. A tremendous amount of energy is given off here. And basically, I'm just going to demonstrate a magnetic force. You can't see, feel, hear, or touch a magnetic wave, yet it is real. And they call it an occult force or a hidden force. The word occult means actually hidden. The unit itself, perhaps you can see it in the back there, the green lights build up, and when it reaches the top one, now it just released the pulse. And the coil, actually I saw it jump a bit here. Now I don't know if this is a dynamic microphone, and if it is, it'll start picking it up. Now, it's not the right type of microphone, but you might hear the click in here. Oh, you can see it actually watch it pull the microphone. Did you see that? So there's a force being created. Now I'm going to take a normal 3/8" truck washer, and if my timing is right here, I'm going to do it right at the right time. I'm going to put this in the center of the coil, and as soon as it releases, we're going to see it jump out. So even though it's a cute little dog and pony show here, I'll do it one more time to make sure it's very powerful, and I'm sure it'll go this way now. I get kind of used to how it works. There it goes. Now what's happening here is that a tremendous magnetic field is being created in the order of greater than 22,000 Gauss. And you put these over the different sites of the body, specifically used for the lymphatic system, for clearing the lymph system. I'm going to watch I don't kill my credit cards here. It will do it very effectively. And this magnetic field, it has to be a moving magnetic field. I demonstrated that by the fact that this washer moved. The field was, a current was generated in this washer which opposed the main field and ejected it outside of the coil. The same thing happens when the magnetic field, when you place it against your body, you have a conductor, the tissues, and as the magnetic field moves across the conductors, the moving magnetic field, it creates or induces microcurrents that again mimic the pattern of 50 to 100 microamperes. And what this effectively does is you can locally attack or create the microcurrents in different tissues, different organs, and get the rest of the body where the blood cleaner gets into the bloodstream very proper. The rest of the body, lymphatic, cerebral fluid, vitreous fluid of the eyeballs, spinal fluid, and other areas of the body do not get as proper as the blood does. You can now effectively get them with a magnetic pulsar. So hopefully you understand the reason why we have included the magnetic pulsar to get latent viruses that probably are hiding because they're very intelligent and hide in stealth in non-blood system, myelin sheath, nervous system, that type of thing.
Okay, we've now handled 3 of the main problems you've got with a badly infected person. Number 1, you can get rid of the infection very rapidly with blood electrification. Number 2, you shut off any possibility of a secondary infection, an opportunistic infection taking over the person, as always kills AIDS patients. Number 3, we have a magnetic pulse which can be put in any part, the head, the feet, the testicles, anywhere in the body. What does that say? 15? We'll try. Thank you. Which will eliminate the infection, which can live as long as 4 years in your adenoids and other organs of your body. The magnetic field generates a back EMF, electromotive force, EMF, that eliminates the infection that's hiding in your body, waiting until you're beat down or tired or your immune system is challenged. We had only one other problem, detoxification. My first study was done in 1995 in a hospital in Huntington Beach, where they were happy to invite me in. Oh, you can't cure AIDS. We cured all of the patients who had volunteered for this, no cost, I paid for it. But they got very, very sore. Their bodies broke out in corpuscles, their skin was erupting pus. This is called detoxification. What happens to those billions and billions of HIV viruses that we have eliminated and that are shown in the PCR tests and the blood counts and everything else? We did thorough documentation all the way. And this one is now under 100, and they started at 412,475 HIV particles per cubic milliliter of blood. Is now well. Sends me a Christmas card occasionally. I get Christmas cards from some of the parents saying, "Thanks for saving my only son. We'd given him up for dead," and this was 5 years ago. They're symptom-free, happy, back at work, and healthy, and you haven't read one word about this in the press. It would ruin the incomes of doctors and pharmaceutical companies if you did know the truth. So it has been suppressed. But we're giving you all of the information right here, right now. How do you get rid of the detoxification? Since I only have 15 minutes, according to our cameraman, we were trying colonics, saunas, hot baths, sweat lodges. Didn't work. One kid had sores under his scalp. They broke, and he had yellow-green pus running down his face. Called me, panicked on the telephone. I said, "Michael, you would rather have these things outside of your body than inside." "Oh!" So he ran, put a white towel around his head like a turban to absorb the pus for a couple of days. Got detoxified, felt great. has thanked me ever since. But now we give them ozonized water. We did a test. This happens to be a blood oxygen meter called a Nellcor, Nellcor, and it's self-calibrating. Doctors and hospitals carry these. When you read the amount of oxygen in your blood, we could do this for each of you, but we don't have time right now. You normally run 93 to 95% oxygen in the hemoglobin.
Bob's at 90.
98.
Bob's at 98 right now, which is 99, which is
99.
excellent for someone over 73
Because
years old.
Yeah, I'm way over 70. I drink oxygenized water in the morning and it makes me young. It puts oxygen in my brain cells. I can think all day without getting tired of the computer. The second largest population of customers are athletes doing marathons who come into the oxygen bars in New York City, and now there's one in Hollywood, and get charged up before they do their thing. If you want to stay charged and get healthier and younger, I grew all my hair back. I lost 100. How many of you remember me when I was a fatso? Oh, we have 1, 2, 3, about 6 or 8 hands in the audience. I weighed about 285 or 290 pounds. I was really fat. The girls didn't like me a bit. Now I weigh about 160. No matter what I eat does not go to weight because we got rid of the things which are causing us to store the food as weight instead of, well, everything that you've learned about appetites is a mistake, and we're going to bring it out in our second book. A lot of people got well from cancer. We did not expect this. What in the world were we doing? Here's the May 18th, 1998 copy of Time magazine, and this is mentioned in your paper, their issue on cancer. They showed the only thing which was useful in the oncology medical textbooks. Did you find that damn thing? It shows that anything else is a fraud. That's called chemotherapy, etc. This shows a leukocyte, a human white cell from the immune system, eating a cancer cell. We find when we rehabilitate the immune system by blood electrification, make the person terribly healthy, his cancer vanishes. It costs $375,000 if you go to an oncologist, a cancer doctor, have the surgery, the chemotherapy, and the radiation. It costs $39.95 to cure, not make better and make you live for 5 years, raise the statistics a little, but to permanently eliminate the cancer, you let your immune system do that. You do it by rehabilitating your immune system. And that's a fact. We had a number of conferences on the telephone about what we could do for this. And now they are using it for cancer cures, but they can't mention it. They'd be totally put out of business by the Food and Drug Administration. They want you to spend $375,000 if you have the insurance with a medical doctor and a pharmacy company. They don't want you to get well. A medical patient cured is a customer lost. Get that. The doctors know that if they cure somebody, that person won't be back. This is a way for you to cure yourself, and it's the simplest thing in the world. Clamp this on it, will you? These are the electrodes covered with cotton that are spaced the exact distance apart of my ulnar and radial arteries in my wrist. You can feel the pulse easily on the radial side, and it's a little harder to feel on the ulnar side, but you've done it. And it plugs into the blood cleaner colloid maker, which you can easily, let's see, that goes on this side. And plugs in here. And you can pull your sleeve down. Nobody knows you're wearing this. I wear it whenever I travel because the filters, air filters, the air you breathe in the normal American airliners cost $75 to change. They don't do it, so they leave those filters dirty for 5 or 6 times the normal time. Those filters have all the germs that little kids with colds and coughs have been coughing into them for months. And if you're sensitive, you normally catch a cold after you've flown 4 or 5 days later. If you use this, you will never catch a cold. I haven't had a cold in 4 or 5 years. I've not had pneumonia. I've not had any disease in a long time. This just takes care of them. It's a matter of record. You can find several of the papers reprinted in your paper that Russ has.
If anybody wants to get a copy of Bob's handout, I highly recommend it. It's about 10 years worth of Bob's research. We have it at our booth, and for the sake of the listeners, we also have, you can order it directly from us at 800-224-0242, and also give you our website, as we reprinted many of the testimonials and a lot of the documentation we're talking about here at www.sota-inc.com. That's in the paper. And you'll find that this basically gives you everything you need to know to build all the instrumentation, all the schematics, and all the research behind it. It's exceptionally well done, and I highly recommend it. It'll be the best $10 you'll ever spend. Yes, 800-224-0242. Or you can just come and see us at the booth afterwards, and we can give you full information.
Russ has these instruments, the ozonators, the blood cleaners, the colloid makers, the magnetic pulsars, at his table right across the hall here. And you can't see it, it's called the First Aid Kit of the Future. And the reason I would run right out and buy one if I didn't have one, when biological warfare happens, it's going to be top secret, and you'll be dying before you can get to the hospital, which does not have enough antibiotics, but this is far more effective than antibiotics. How much time do we have? What? 1 minute. 1 minute. We're going to demonstrate the ozone maker. Can you plug it in and let it bubble a second?
I'll just give you a really quick shot at it here. If you want to put that glass there, Bob. Basically, we've got a small ozone unit, which maybe the camera can zoom in on, and we are in the process of redesigning. And this one is a quartz ozone generator, uses a high voltage discharge, and basically we have an air stone made out of ceramic and silicone, and lo and behold, you're simply bubbling the ozone through the water. It takes about 4 minutes to fully saturate that water. And you drink it immediately, because ozone cannot be stored because of its very great properties, its oxidative properties, dissipate within about 20 minutes. So you'd want to have your own generator to make ozonated water on a per batch basis. Ozone is remarkable since it breaks down into oxygen, carbon dioxide, and water. And the oxygen content is what we're after. As it breaks down, the body gets flooded with oxygen, and you can see the results on the blood level meter. Generally, people will go up to 100% and retain that for about 3 or 4 hours. And the ozone also breaks down the toxins produced by the body as these machines detox the body. They're very powerful machines.
We are privileged to be able to see part 2 of a presentation from a very fine scientist. Bob Beck is an award-winning physicist, widely known for his instrumentation of altered states, state-of-the-art medical electrostimulators, and he does own several patents, including the low-voltage electronic flash. He was convinced that microcurrents of electricity have the power to disable viruses and other pathogens to allow the body to heal itself. And on the way from the airport, I got to ride with him and hear about his information with heart issues and other things that are viral related. And many of you have been here for part 1. So at this point, I would like you to be welcome to a combination lecture and workshop. Mr. Bob Beck.
Thank you. Okay, we were kind of broken up, and that, can you pull it back a little or make it dimmer? I know they were doing well when these guys were in the dark. You had enough light, so we won't be using slides.
Is that enough?
Oh, it's okay. I can't see the audience on that side, but how many of you have not heard this before? Not heard this presentation about electromedicine? 2, 3, 4, there are about 5 people in here. That's about half of the audience for the people listening to the tape. Are we recording all right? Good. And I was given 2 different times, and Bob Butley came and got me, so we'll start. This is not my discovery. I have been investigating this phenomena since 1991-92, and I find why the pharmaceutical houses are paying a great deal of money to suppress this. If you learn it, if the public learns about this, it'll make a drastic decrease in the income of doctors, clinics, hospitals, pharmaceutical supplies, because this process of blood electrification kills everything in the blood which doesn't belong there. And we have proof of that now. We didn't in the beginning. We do now. We have many, many hospital tests. One thing you might find interesting, this is the only fully known, proven test for AIDS in the world today. I did a study, I paid for it in 1995 at a hospital in Huntington Beach, California. The doctors were happy to see me come. It wasn't costing them anything. I was paying for the equipment and the time of the AIDS volunteers. Every single AIDS sufferer, some of them were dying, is well and happy and back at work, except one who we lost in a motorcycle accident. It had nothing to do with his problem. And as thanks for this, I get Christmas cards from some of the parents. Thanks for saving the life of my only son. At that time, we were using the HIV levels in the blood, PCR tests, polymerase chain reaction, for which Carrie Mullis got the Nobel Prize a couple of years ago, as the standard. Now we are not certain whether HIV has anything whatever to do with AIDS. It's been labeled, tacked onto AIDS, and people are no longer claiming that it's the sole cause. Since this is billed as part 2, and over half of you, no, a little less than half of you have seen this before, why don't we keep it open forum? We can keep it open to your questions. Any questions you ask that I can possibly answer, I will. And the ones I don't know the answers to, I won't fake. But we're going to make it a comment. Go ahead.
I'd like to say that if you have a question, please come up to the mic so we can record it. Since they're using both mics, we don't have the mobile one for this session.
Thank you.
So you get to wait in line like you do for politicians.
You got to come up here and talk into the mic so we can get it on the tapes. It's important because people will take these tapes home and they, in some cases, can't translate the questions. In the last year, the literature has been full of work done in this topic in Geneva, Switzerland. And let me read you one sentence that came out in September of 1998 from a French magazine called Science at V, issue number 979, September 1998, page 44. Their telephone number is in your paper. Quote, white cells, leukocytes, kill bacteria and pathogens and pathogenic fungus by electrocuting them. I wasn't taught this when I was studying pre-med at USC back during World War II. I thought it was some sort of a chemical or an antibiotic reaction. It isn't. The leukocyte tells the electrical pattern of the germs, bacteria, pathogens, parasites, and if they're the wrong thing, it surrounds them with an electrical, get this, electrical field and kills them. Now your body produces quite a few electrons, but where can you get a few billion trillion electrons cheaply? This is a 9-volt 2U6 transistor radio battery, and the normal cell, the zinc carbon, costs about $1. If you want to go first class and buy an alkaline cell, they cost $1.32 wholesale in Los Angeles, and they will kill, if you use it correctly, billions and billions of invaders in your bloodstream that have been holding your immune system at a tremendous disadvantage. I thought you might be interested in this. White cells, leukocytes, kill bacteria and pathogenic fungi by electrocuting them. Discovered by Jacques Schneidel and Karl-Heinz Krells, Geneva University Hospital, Switzerland, this defense mechanism is triggered as soon as receptors on the white cells detect a microbe's presence. Now, electrons are cheap. Billions of these are available in every supermarket, liquor store, electronics store, and that is what we use to kill, or rather to disable, the pathogens. Now, the way this works, according to the experts, and we have quite a few expert opinions in your paper, show them the copy of this.
The paper is available at our booth if anybody wants to get a copy. It's basically a compilation of Bob's work of about 10 years, and it's probably one of the best $10 you'll spend on information. It covers everything that Bob's going to talk about today, including schematics to build your own units and all the research behind it.
A lot of people, since Harvard, MIT, and Albert Einstein College of Medicine, New York City, have filed for patents, and some of them have been issued, is are you infringing if you use this technology to cure cancer, AIDS, hepatitis, Epstein-Barr, etc.? So I did a search. This is something I used to do when I was a boy physicist. And we published on page 13 of 57 pages a list of U.S. government patents on the process going back 107 years. Now you might ask why, if these 20 or 30 patents exist, you can get them on your fax machine for 35 cents, or you can get them from the patent office for $2 each. Why haven't you heard that there's a perfect non-invasive, non-side effect cure for all electronic devices, not some of them, but all, according to the patents. The main reason is this is so cheap, so rapid, so benevolent for a cure, and you need no pharmaceuticals, you need no doctors, no nurses, no hospitals, no clinics. Why haven't you heard about this before now? Because there's no profit in it. For example, if you have cancer and do the conventional therapy, which is surgery and chemotherapy and radiation, the average cost, whether you have insurance or not, is $375,000. If you do it yourself, the cancer will stay cured. It costs $39.95. Now, the difference of several $100,000 between what the doctors and hospitals charge you and what you pay doing it yourself is astronomical. And that's one reason we call the paper Take Back Your Power, because this gives you back to yourselves. After today, you will no longer belong to the pharmaceutical houses, the people who pay the college students, medical students, way through school, sign on their office furniture when they go in business and graduate. You can do it yourself far better at your own convenience and when you please. And we, in the beginning, wanted to see everyone build his or her own equipment, because then the FDA can't take it away from you. But a lot of people are intimidated by soldering irons and 3-cent resistors. So there are several ethical manufacturers in the world that I know of today. And my opinion is the most ethical and most careful, and the fellow making the equipment that doesn't break down the most of this in the world is Russ Torlage of SOTA Instruments. He's got an exhibit out here that you can look at these things, whether you buy them or not, and this will make you, the rest of your life, totally immune to bacteriological warfare, germs, cancer, incurable diseases. There are in America today over 100,000 registered pharmaceuticals. And each one of these, when penicillin, the first pharmaceutical to get wide use, was brought out, people noted that the penicillin only killed 8 different bacteria. There were hundreds that the penicillin wouldn't touch. The penicillin won't touch viruses, although people take it for their colds and flu, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the problem today is that the vast majority of germs, parasites, fungi, bacteria have become strain resistant. And when you go into a hospital, you run the same risk of dying from whatever you went into that hospital for, or dying from strain-resistant staph and strep and other things which were easily controlled with antibiotics up until a few years ago. But when you have one of these, if you build your own, they're $50. If you buy them, they're over 100. Will cure all of these things and be a lot more beneficial for you. You will not have the side effects that you will get with most antibiotics. Most antibiotics require about 3 months to recover from after you have taken them for a particular disease. Some people never recover from antibiotics prescriptions. Anything more to say on that?
If you're with the electrical machine itself, it's very simple to operate, and We'll demonstrate, as actually this is the second half of the tape, so we're sort of trying to fill in if you haven't seen the first half. We'll demonstrate how to put it on, how to use it, and it's very simple. And the unit itself will mimic the 50 to 100 microamperes that's required to penetrate into the bloodstream. And using the two small gold probes here, they go into the ulnar and radial arteries of the wrist. So the technique itself is very simple, very straightforward, and you literally turn it up until you get a mild tickling sensation, and that's pretty well as high as you need to go. What could be more simple than that? And the devices are very lightweight, so they can be placed in your pocket and you go about your day. We'd like to see people get on the units for 2 hours a day, because it takes 2 hours for all the blood to pass through the point on your wrist, the cell on your big toe and your earlobe to make it through the point on your wrist takes about 2 hours. And
it does it about 7 times.
7 times during the 2 hours, so you get a very thorough cleansing. And we'd also like to see people get on it for at least a month initially.
Okay, how many engineers do we have in the audience today, right now? Come on. How many electrical workers? How many, ham radio operators? Well, let me tell you the secrets here while I'm about it. It was discovered at Einstein College of Medicine in New York City in 1990, March of 1990, that it required 50 to 100 micro, millionths of an ampere directly in the blood before the outer transcriptase layer would be treated so it could no longer attach to healthy human cells. That meant that whatever microbes or fungus or bacteria you had in your body would float around in your blood supply until it was dead, totally immobilized, and then your kidneys and your liver and your skin, the skin is the second largest organ of elimination in the human body, would take care of them, and you would be without them. It does all kind of things to the blood. About 3 years ago, Michael Coyle, who was then in Boulder, Colorado, who does dark field microscopy, looked at Mike Seiler's blood, threw the slide into the garbage, which was collected by the licensed bioelectrician and disposed of, and he signed a receipt for it. He found that one of the slides in the box still had an orange, yellowish color. And he'd never seen this before in about 15 years of practice. So he took the slide out of the garbage box, looked at it under a dark field microscope. You can see this with phase contrast microscopy, or you can see it in dark field microscopy, and every major city has dozens of these microscope operators. And he noticed that the cells, the red cells, were still circulating in what was left of the plasma, which had shrunk because of evaporation out underneath the cover slip. And he said, this is incredibly unusual. The maximum life that you'll get out of the most healthy blood that you can see is about 4 days. He looked at it another month later. This is 2 28-day months, and there was a little bit of blood that had not evaporated. He did not seal the cover slip on the microscope slide. Still alive, still well. He called it immortal blood. When I was in Boulder several years ago, I stopped by his lab and he took a sample of my blood and the lady I was with at the time, and we too had immortal blood. At that time, in 1995 or 6, there were 17 people in the United States that we could point out that had immortal blood. All 17 of us had used the blood cleaner to get rid of the garbage that lives in your blood. These other organisms have evolved with Homo sapiens for some 3 million years, is estimated. And your immune system, which should be able to take care of anything without even your knowledge, is so loaded down by these organisms that it's amazing you can survive. Most people don't. Social Security is counting on you to die at age 65. If you do this, you're likely to live to 120 and be in perfect health. When I started doing this, I weighed nearly 300 pounds. How many of you remember me when I was a fatso? Yeah, good.
We saw your picture last night.
Oh. How many of you remember me as fat? Okay. How many of you remember when I was bald on top? I had a fringe on the side. Yeah. Pretty girl back there remembers. After I had done this for a couple of months, I started losing weight no matter what I ate. We have a theory about why this is. And I grew my hair back, and I'm not bald. And I took about 30 years off of my life. Watch out for my libido. At any rate, it totally rejuvenated me, and has totally rejuvenated a number of other people who've used it. And I'm walking, living proof of it. The only thing wrong with me is bad knees. There's no cartilage in my knee joints. I was too athletic when I was younger. And when I can find a couple of months, I'm going to get the operation which replaces the joints with titanium or stainless steel. They say don't do it here, go to England and get the glass ceramic joints. They last longer and they're better. They're a hell of a lot cheaper, $3,000. We have tried to supply as much information as possible in this paper. By the way, on page 14 of the paper is the original only article to appear in the American press on blood cleaning. And in Science News magazine, March the 30th, 1981, page 207, you don't have to make notes, this is in your paper, they mention shocking treatment proposed for AIDS. They mention how Dr. Kaali, K-A-A-L-I, at Albert Einstein College, and colleagues had accidentally, and I'm not sure there are any accidents, this had to be coincidentally, had put a couple of little platinum wires in a petri dish that was loaded with infected human blood and HIV. They found in a short period of time that only 50 to 100 millionths of 1 ampere going through these two wires totally made it impossible for the HIV to any longer attach to healthy human cells. Since the HIV could not attach to human cells, it was immobilized. Dr. Lyman and colleagues found that exposure to 50 to 100 microamperes of electricity did everything they needed. There were no antibiotics, no pharmaceuticals, no AZT, no combination therapies in the petri dish. Since this time, this information, in my opinion, has been carefully suppressed, because if you found out about it, you would never use pharmaceuticals or doctors or hospitals again. And now that the majority of diseases are strain resistant, you've got about a 50-50 chance when you go into a hospital of being one of the, they claim 100 to 300,000 people a year will die of diseases you catch in the hospital that were there when you got there and not the disease you went into the hospital to fix. You won't read much about this. But if you have your own healing systems, You don't have to worry about this for the rest of your life. And the real scary part of this, I think I brought it with me. We didn't have any idea that this would be the truth when we brought these out, our printed circuit diagrams for the people to build their own. I'm giving this away. When I was a college professor, we had to publish or perish. The papers that we produced were to stake claims to our territory and not tell the competition about any secrets. This paper is entirely different from that. We're trying to give you all of the secrets and not claim any responsibility at all for the invention of this and what have you. But I have spent 7 or 8 years doing research in it. And the January 22nd issue, second front page of Times Magazine, they tell the truth. Clinton warns of germ warfare. And in 2 pages, you will find that the biggest secret project in America today is the development of biological warfare weapons, because World War III will not be fought with atomic or nuclear fission or fusion devices. It'll be fought with germs. And over 124 women have been arrested in international airports coming into the United States, carrying anthrax and other bacteria in their body cavities, 35 degrees centigrade, and are now brewing these in university basement rooms. They take large cans filled with nutrient solution composed of milk and agar-agar and various proteins, and they're planning on unleashing this against America as soon as there's an opportunity. And Iran, the various Middle European countries who are planning this, cannot possibly beat us with standard weaponry. The only way they can always beat us, invariably win, is with bacteriological warfare, because there are not 0.01% narcotics and pharmaceuticals in all the hospitals of the world, including America, all the pharmacies of the world, to handle 0.01% of the people who will come down if automobiles traveling through the streets with exhaust system aspirators let these germs loose. The germs are here and already exist, and they've gone to a great deal of investigation to round these germs up and get them out of circulation. Pardon me, I didn't eat today. I didn't eat lunch anyway. So what you have to do here, you should have, the reason I would run and buy one of these immediately, if I didn't have the ability to build my own, I would run out there and get one tonight. He doesn't have enough. He's going home at 5 o'clock. And look at these, and if it rings your psyche, your high self, your guardian angel, that this is something that will save the lives of my family, my husband, wife, friends, self, family, leave it here. But we've had a lot of people bring out pendulums and dowsing rods over the table and decide this is the best thing they've seen in a long, long time. Want to say anything about that, or?
Well, do you want to, we can talk directly about it with some of the testimony.
Okay, tell him. Here's proof.
I compiled for Bob here about, you can count them here. There's quite a few testimonials, each one unsolicited, which people wrote into us either via email or just through letters. And we weren't really prepared for what we would hear back from the results, the positive results with this protocol. And even people come up to the booth to us here at this show and say, we're so very impressed with the machines and what they've done for us in areas which you never thought possible. If you wanted to get a reprint of any of these, they're on our website. And the website is www.sota-inc.com. Or you can give our 800 number a call and we'll get you a reprint of these at 800-224-0242.
Say it again slowly.
800-224-0242. And just to go through some of these, in August a friend of my mother's told me about Dr. Beck's device. She had suffered from chronic fibromyalgia for years and was bedridden most of that time. She told me Beck's machines not only cured her, but she felt better post-Beck than she had ever felt in her life. I immediately went out and got myself a blood purifier after seeing the amazing results. Thank you, SOTA, for your continued support. And it goes on. And again, these are the actual, if you can zoom in, these are not written by ourselves. These are actually handwritten. There's another one on the back here. Hand-typed, handwritten, various formats. And it just keeps going on. We have... it's hard to do this with one hand. This is Noreen's struggle with HIV. She started out with the PCR count on November 22nd, 1996. PCR HIV test read was 3,763. On January 1997, November, December, January, 3 months later, my PCR test was not detectable. So there's a perfectly legitimate cure for this particular lady's HIV. Here's a lady who says, I'm finally getting around to sending you, we got interference in here, finally getting around to sending you my story for a newsletter along with a flyer explaining my practice as a health practitioner. I came down with chronic fatigue in 1986 when I woke up one morning with slightly swollen glands, and goes on and goes on. She was right out of, literally couldn't walk, bedridden. And at the very end, she says, in August I started using the Beck Protocol, and the second day I was out running, actually sprinting at top speed with my dog until my quadriceps ached. This is an amazing response in only a couple of days. And it just simply goes on and on like this. We have colds and flu. We have, this one is herpes. Herpes shingles. Chronic fatigue. Let's see here. We have one. After initially using the units for 22 days, I felt better than I had in years. And it just goes on again. Thank you, Dr. Beck, for developing the silver pulsar, magnetic pulsar, because they've helped me a great deal, and I've recommended their use to others. And on it goes.
I think we have a question here.
Yes. You spoke about these devices before.
Raise the microphone.
You spoke about these devices before, and there was another one that you mentioned that you had created, a brain tuner.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I can. It's not the topic for tonight, but I'd be delighted.
Right.
I was in on a secret study about 18 years ago at St. Isabel's Hospital in New York City. We had a problem, and the Soviets had a problem. Our problem was that many of our generals were alcoholic and had a habituation to bourbon, gin, vodka, etc. The Russians had an equal and opposite problem with a number of people who were on vodka and high in the military. So we had to find out what we could do for these people who were secretly hospitalized at St. Elizabeth's in Maryland with alcoholism. Well, what had been happening was psychotherapy, where people were using words. There was Alcoholics Anonymous, which is not very efficient and takes a long time, the rest of your life, etc., etc., etc. Narcotics, drugs, anti-everything. What they found was one thing which would produce the number of beta endorphins in the human body that the person no longer needed. How many minutes does it say? Okay, we got to speed this up. At that time, Meg Patterson, MD, a doctor, had brought a unit over here from Scotland that she had used on Peter Townshend of the Who, and it was apparently controlling the alcoholism, and he was sent home on a plane instead of on a hospital plane, cured. So Captain Paul Tyler of the U.S. Army told me to develop one that was better. And for 6 months in 1983, we developed all of the legal cranial electrostimulators available in the world. That was about 12 or 14 units. Found out what was good about them, what was bad, and developed the unit that we're making available today. We got it okayed by the FDA. It's a specific for depression, anxiety, insomnia, and addiction, but we can't advertise it. Otherwise, the FDA would put us in jail. We can't sell it without a prescription, although we have been known to do this occasionally. And it is available from Russ and Vocaristo. If you have a pencil there, we'll give you Vocaristo's phone number. He's in the San Fernando Valley. His phone number is area code 818-830-1930, and he can tell you about them on the telephone. They're a fraction of the cost. I believe that healing is a gift of God. It should be given away free. I don't have much patience with people charging for multi-level markups of non-HGH and things that they're claiming that they can't sell legally. Well, at any rate, yes, the brain tuner does exist. We don't have any here. We have them in Los Angeles. We weren't going to talk about them at all, but you asked. And we never have them returned from people that don't like them. And they are available by return mail. And the general opinion is that most illnesses are caused by stress and depression. I've got 10 minutes to quit this. I thought that Bob had given me a little leeway in it. Here's an article done on the brain tuner by Omni Magazine. And this was back in January of 1983. It tells about all the addictive cures and depressive cures. They don't want us selling these because they totally wipe out psychologists, psychiatrists. The family counselors had a convention at the Marriott Hotel in Los Angeles, which I attended. What is your biggest problem? Family counseling. How long does it take? 6 or 8 months. What do? We talk to them twice a week. If you buy a brain tuner, you will begin reproducing the beta endorphins in your brain, in your hypothalamus, that make all those problems well, and you won't need any therapists, and they're going to complain like hell when they're out of work. Now, we have a little problem here. How do we keep you sweet children out of jail if you start actually healing yourselves? The FDA is the enforcement arm for the American Medical Association. If anything we're doing cuts into the income of a doctor, we're likely to go to jail. So we did some research. Code, we're looking now at page 12 of 57, 22 of 57, federal law. Code of Federal Regulations, Article 807.65, Subpart D, exemptions, paragraph D and F. excludes and exempts from their regulations. In other words, you can do this legally with no interference from the government, which I've had plenty. Licensed practitioners are excluded, including physicians, dentists, and optometrists who manufacture or otherwise alter devices for their own use in their practice. So when you get a brain tuner, take a soldering iron, put it to one of the printed circuit board joints. I only have a couple of minutes. I've altered it. You could use it legally. And paragraph F of federal, not city, not county, not state regulations. Persons who manufacture, prepare, propagate, compound, or process devices solely for use in research. How many of you guys have looked at a restaurant menu this morning or in the last month? I hereby pronounce you researchers. You're immune from Federal Drug Administration, FDA, regulations. Section F, persons who manufacture, prepare, propagate, compound, or process devices solely for use in research, teaching, or analysis, and who do not introduce such devices into commercial distribution. Anyone can use these electronic devices for anything he chooses by using these federal laws. You don't need to make notes. They're all reprinted in your paper. We recommend that you pick these papers up, to take back your power papers, to have all of the details on how you can make your own. And they're available at Russ's booth, and he's knocking down right away. If you want to look at some of the devices, you want to demonstrate the magnetic? We found that after we'd cured people, and there were clinically hospitally cure of AIDS, they might catch it again in 4 years because the AIDS cells had been sleeping in their adenoids, adrenals, lymph supply, and had waked up and reinfected them.
Actually, we probably are running out of time to do that, but we did demonstrate in the first half of the tape, so the viewers will actually see that demonstration.
He kicks a washer 10 feet into the air by the occult hidden back EMF, electromotive force, that's produced by the coil. When you hold this anywhere near your head or eyes or body or prostate, it generates a back electromotive force which is quite strong enough to eliminate the germs that are still living there, like in your immune system, in your lymph tissue, and it takes care of them. The next thing that we did yesterday was we have 2 minutes, silver colloids, which is the strongest medicine you can make. This glass of silver colloids bought from a pharmaceutical house would be $90, $70 or $80 from a health supply house, a tenth of a penny if you make your own. We have full instructions in the paper of how to make your own. We're not going to demonstrate this because I'm out of time. The last thing is ozone. You bubble a glass like this of drinking tap water, you don't have to use distilled, with ozonated oxygen that you get out of the air. It's the thing you breathe that feeds your bodies. Drink it, and in seconds, you will find that your oxygen supply, which is normally 93 to 95, this is a medical hospital hemoglobin meter, will go up to 99 or 100. Just because of the oxygen that was dissolved in the water and is now getting into your brain cells when you drink the water. Now, I think I'd better quit. My time is up. We wish we had more time. I thought we would have more time when I took this assignment. And if you have any questions, we'll have time for about 3 questions, then we'll shut up. Okay, no questions? Please don't come to the table. We have to pack the stuff and get out of here. There's one.
Are the tapes available now, or do we have to leave an order?
Ask him.
Okay.
Are you making the tapes right now?
You can audio tape before you leave. The video you'll have to order.
Audio tapes are ready before you leave. The video you'll have to order. Okay, that's it. Thank you for being here. We wish we had another hour.